Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to the Thursday, October 26th Nantucket Conservation meeting.
There's Tim.
Permit me to confirm that all members who are present can be heard. Members, when I call your names, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Beal.
Got it. I'm here.
Tim Brain.
Here.
Joe Pandowski.
Here.
Linda Williams.
Here.
Ian Golding present, and Seth Engelborg and Mike Miserelli won't be joining us this evening. This meeting is being held entirely remotely, so all participants are participating via Zoom. The public may participate via YouTube. There are directions on the Times website as to how to join. If anybody wishes to speak, please raise your hand either in your camera window or virtually and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please state your name and any relationship you might have to the project before speaking. Please keep your device muted when you're not speaking so that you're not picked up by the recording or creating a distraction. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. So before we start the meeting, I'd just like to welcome aboard our new minute taker, Elena Cano. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And so a note from town administration that we all should enunciate clearly and speak loudly so that Elena will be able to transcribe what we say. So, and then on that note, we'll start the meeting with public comment on items not being heard this evening. So, seeing none, moving on to public hearing, notice of intent, the following are continued. The trustees of reservations Cascada Cohu Wildlife Refuge is continued until November the 16th. And Somersack LLC 5 Highbrush Path has been withdrawn, and so we'll start with 46 Shimo Pond Road Nominee Trust, 46 Shimo Pond Road, represented by Art Gasparo. And before we start, do we need to take a vote on the withdrawal, Jeff?
So real quickly, yes,
Yeah.
we will, but we can do it when we get there. There is one more continuance tonight. 8 Highbrush Path LLC has also continued to the 16th of November. Sorry.
Okay, so I can't hear you very well. So did you say 8 Highbrush Path?
Yes.
Okay. Am I the only one who can't hear Jeff very easily?
You
Yes.
can hear
Oh, yeah.
him. It's
I can hear
enough.
Enough.
that-
Okay.
loud and clear here.
Okay.
here.
All right. So Art, 46 Shimo Pond Road Nominee Trust. Good
Thank you,
evening.
Mr. Chairman. Before the commission tonight for the second public hearing related to this project for the maintenance and reconstruction of existing stone groins on the beach in Shimo. And I'm also here with Attorney Dan Bailey. The commission asked for both a site visit and some additional information. We were present for the site visit, but I understand that chose not to or weren't able to attend, but hopefully the photos that we've provided are accurate representation for you all to have a clear understanding of what the situation is out there. We also, the commission, I think, had asked for some more information related to the age of the groins and proving their existence. And what we did was to purchase a historic aerial photo of high quality from 1966, which we filed with the commission, that showed the very clearly shows these stone groins in existence at that time. And again, just to quickly recap the project, we're simply looking to, these are licensed structures, and we're looking to supplement some stones and bring them back to the form that they were originally at, and essentially perform maintenance on those structures. With that, I'd be happy to address any questions or other concerns that you may have. And Dan had also filed a letter. Should you have any questions for him or related to his correspondence.
Any questions from commissioners? Joe?
Is this considered a grandfathered situation?
Well, if you're asking me, I would say that could go either way. I'm quite sure that Mr. Bailey, good evening, good afternoon, Mr. Bailey.
Good
will
afternoon,
argue
Mr.
that
Chairman.
It is grandfathered, but of course, the house that is nominally being protected by it was built when, Art? 3 years ago? I can't hear you.
The house was reconstructed a few years ago.
Right.
Yes.
And so, it's pretty clear in our local regulations. In fact, I'll read from it, performance standards. No coastal revetments or coastal engineering structures of any type shall be constructed, rebuilt, or repaired. And I think you could argue that whatever the Chapter 91 license, since it was granted 3 years ago, Art, am I correct?
The reconstruction, sir?
The Chapter 91 license.
Oh, sure. I can get you that date. I think you'd asked me that last time. It was a few years, just a few within the last 5 years. Yes.
Right. So I assume you could argue under Chapter 91 provisions that it could be restored to the condition it was in when the Chapter 91 license was granted, which I assume there's been no erosion in the last few years. So I can see of two reasons why I'm not very happy with this, but I'm quite sure Mr. Bailey will point out the error of my ways. Mr. Bailey, if there are no other questions from commissioners. Oh, there are. Okay. Mark first and then Tim.
Thank you, Chairman Golding. I was interested in you reading our regulation where no repairing of these revetments. So how can we possibly even consider it? I don't understand. Maybe Dan can help us with that one. But if it says you can't repair, why are we here?
Thank you, Mark. Tim?
This is from the rookie commissioner. What would happen? What purpose are they serving? I know it's probably sediment motion and so on. And what would happen if they weren't there?
Well, as a hypothetical question, I mean, I
Well-
really can't answer that. But
Can
as a
Art?
rhetorical question, I tend to agree with you, not very much.
Well, I don't have a position. I'm really just trying to become educated on what their purpose is and if they really do accomplish it. And I don't know if anybody can answer that for me. Art?
So, Art, would you like to
Art.
respond to Tim?
Yes, please, through you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of groins perpendicular to the shoreline in general are to help stabilize the beach and to help hold sand on the beach in terms of the movement and the so-called littoral drift along the shoreline. So yes, they do have a function, and yes, they do help with that stabilization of the beach in that area. And without them, I believe the beach elevation would likely be lower.
Are neighboring properties doing the same thing, or are they?
Again, through you, Mr. Chair, if I may. No, and that's why these pre-exist the regulations, and that's why I believe that we want to maintain them.
Mr. Chair, my point was, if there are neighboring properties that don't have them and they're not getting erosion, wouldn't that be evidence that maybe they're not necessary? And I don't know if you know the answer to that, anybody?
No,
No,
So Linda, are you asking to be recognized?
Art's probably better able to answer that question, but we have this situation all over the island. It doesn't necessarily mean that your lot is not eroding faster than the guy on your left or guy on your right. It's taken me a while to get up to speed on this stuff myself. I don't particularly have an issue with this proposal.
Thank you, Linda.
I still am confused about the grandfathered, not grandfathered type of thing, but I don't have an issue with this.
Okay, thank you. So, Mark? And I think you're muted, Mark.
Thank you. And I'm looking at a picture of Google Earth and the entire Simo shore, and then zooming in on this property. And to the east of this property, there is some end scouring. I'd say it's relatively minor compared to what we've seen along the North Shore. And to the west, there's no significant change. And there are groins intermittently along this beach, and with no apparent change in the real beach makeup that I can see looking at Google Earth. Now that's fairly accurate depiction of what goes on along that shore. There's not much erosion to speak of, like we know in many other places. So I'm a little I'm not convinced that these do much in this location.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments from commissioners? And seeing none, Emily Molden, I see, has her hand up. And would you please comment?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay? I'm on my
Yes.
phone. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for taking my comments. I did have a couple of clarifying questions and some concerns to raise. Just building off some of the discussion so far, I do think that it's certainly important for the commission to determine and clarify whether what's being proposed is a reconstruction in kind of what was previously licensed, to make sure that there is not any expansion taking place. I understand that there have been Chapter 91 licenses here, and I think that if possible, the commission should ask to receive a copy of the original Chapter 91 licenses and plans to demonstrate that what's being proposed is just a reconstruction of what was in place. I think that might help with some of the questions and inquiry. I also had a question about in the filing, there was discussion, I believe, about licensing of the timber walkway and timber facade. And I just wanted to clarify whether that is relevant or if this is specifically to rebuild the stone growings at this location. And finally, I was curious, it doesn't seem as though the application included land containing shellfish as being a resource area that's impacted here. And I think that is a resource area that would be very relevant, and potentially there are a number of different interests protected by the regulations that could be impacted by the work to repair these growings. I think compaction, circulation. So I also hoped that that could be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And Mr. Bailey, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you, if you will. Like to respond to the questions about grandfathering of pre-existing use. And I'm going to go to your regulations and the definitions. I mean, in a nutshell, uses which are grandfathered or pre-existing. They pre-exist both the the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Nantucket Wetlands Protection Bylaw. So the State Wetlands Protection Act is anything before 1972. The Nantucket Wetlands Protection Bylaw is anything before 1983. And the distinction is that structures that pre-exist, particularly structures that are duly licensed under Chapter 91, are not subject to the performance standards. So we don't get to the section about land under the ocean and buildings that have been altered since 1978. Instead, we look at the definition of grandfathering pre-existing use, which says, and I'm reading from the regulations, allows that the use and normal maintenance of any structure or alteration of land within wetland resource areas and their buffers existing at the time of enactment of Chapter 131, Section 40, 1972, or the Town of Nantucket Wetlands Protection Bylaw, effective date 1983, or subsequent revisions may be continued subject to the following. Existing structures, uses, and alterations of land may not be extended or modified unless such modification is permitted by the finding of the Commission that such alteration or modification shall have no adverse impact to resource areas. Well, we're not asking to extend or modify. We're asking simply to repair what we have a Chapter 91 license for. Then the other provision is that existing structures, uses, and/or alterations of land which have been abandoned for 5 years or more shall not be reestablished, and any future use shall conform with then appropriate requirements of the Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Town of Nantucket Wetlands Protection Bylaw. At your last hearing, Commissioner Engelborg drilled down, and this is why I sent in the letter that I did, drilled down on the question of whether this use had in fact been abandoned. And he said on the record, and I watched the hearing, that the performance standards don't apply because this is a pre-existing use. So, you know, Mr. Golding and I have had this discussion several times. I think one thing we could agree about is that the bylaw is not a model of perfect drafting. But I think I'm right. And I'm sure he thinks he's right. But, you know, here, you know, that it's clear to me that this is a pre-existing use, that the bylaw says that the bylaw, you know, the definition of grandfathering says the bylaw does not apply. So we never get to the question of the performance standards. And this is something, you know, I know the commission has asked town council for interpretation on this in the past, and I don't think you've ever got it. You know, I kind of come and go, and it seems like every time I'm in front of you, this is the question that we're debating. But I know that, you know, it seems like I may have convinced Commissioner Engelborg of that, given his comments the last time around. With respect to abandonment, and I wrote a long letter about that, but it's not defined in your regs or the bylaw. Abandonment in Black's Law Dictionary or any law dictionary, and certainly under land use law generally in Massachusetts, and it's zoning law rather than wetlands law, but that's what we have to look to, requires an intent to abandon. That's what the definition says also. You know, indulge me for a minute for being, you know, the wonky lawyer, but the definition is to desert or go away permanently. That's not the case here. These groins have been there for a long time. They're continuing to perform the use that they were originally installed for, so they haven't in any sense been abandoned. I'd also be, you know, caution the commission to be careful about where you go with abandonment, because if you were to take the position that 5 years of non-maintenance is abandonment, you're going to have an awful lot of structures, including structures owned by the town and the land bank, that are going to fall within that, because it's the very nature of coastal structures that they don't require repair every 5 years. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Art.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to follow up, if I could, through you, to address Ms. Molden's comments. The Chapter 91 license is certainly I believe on file with the commission in this for this property. We could send it to you again. No problem. We're happy to do that. It is recorded at the Registry of Deeds as well. And the reconstruction of these groins does not propose, it proposes the cross section on the plan is exactly the same cross section from the Chapter 91 license. It's essentially to restore that same form, to put some additional rocks back within the existing footprint, so that we are maintaining that structure so that it is not eventually lost because it hadn't to maintain it, but not larger. And with respect to land containing shellfish, it's the same footprint as the filled out in the form for the land subject to coastal storm flowage. We don't believe there would be any impacts. Same reasons as described in the narrative. It would be a quick project with relatively small machinery. We'd rake the beach on the way back, overall all time and I think work that's going to happen through there is not going to have an impact on the shellfish.
Thank you, Art.
And sorry, one more thing. No work on the boardwalk is proposed.
Thank you, Art. And Mark, do I see your hand up?
Yes, you do. Thank you, Ian. I wanted to thank Mr. Bailey for making it very clear to me that our regulations are somewhat in conflict, which doesn't help us in our deliberations. I think rebuilding what's on the ground unchanged is going to be, I think, hard pressed for us to say no to. If there was any change, we'd be looking at it with a different attitude. But where that's this out and out rebuild of what's there, and they have a Chapter 91 license, I'm going to be hard pressed to vote no.
Thank you, Mark. Any further comments from anybody? So, I take your point, and Mr. Bailey is very persuasive. And
Thank you.
One thing, if a Chapter 91 license was, from pre-78, but I will say no more. And I imagine that Art, you would like to close.
I believe so, but I'll defer to Mr. Bailey.
Yes, we're prepared to close.
So, Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
All the required information's on file. Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to close? Joe, thank you. Seconded by Mark. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you as always, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Ian,
too.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah,
I see Will on the call here. I missed the first 2 minutes of the hearing. Is Will back with us, or?
he's approaching us. So he's back and getting back into the saddle. He has at least 1 foot in the stirrup. I'm not sure. You can tell me whether or not you've actually fully mounted, Will, but it's good to see you.
I think that description was perfectly accurate.
Okay.
Hi, Will. Welcome back.
Great to see you all. And Tim, nice to meet you virtually.
Nice to meet you.
So that moves us on to Somerset Nominee Trust, 14 Somerset Road. And there are 2 applications, and they're represented by Paul Santos.
Yes.
Good evening, Paul.
Good evening. Thank you. I think we'll do, since these are filed separately, we'll do each one individually. The first one is Lot 8 on a newly created subdivision road that is named Bittersweet Lane. This is the former, or is the Giffen property located on Somerset Road that we had previously been before this board for a notice of intent for the work within the infrastructure of a portion of the roadway area. The applications before you tonight are for 2 of the residential lots located at the end of the road. They are the only 2 lots within the subdivision that fall under the Concom jurisdiction. Bittersweet Lane is a newly created gravel roadway that had previously been approved by the Nantucket Planning Board and ultimately reviewed by the board's consulting engineer, Ed Pesci, with regard to drainage infrastructure for the roadway itself. The first lot before you is Lot 8. It is located on the southerly side of the road. So actually the one we're looking at there, I think is that is Lot 8. That's Lot 8 right there. Lot 8 is approximately 20,426 square feet. It is a vacant wooded parcel of land. It is not located within a flood zone, and it's outside of any jurisdiction with regard to the Mass Endangered Species Act. What you see before you is a approximate building envelope on the subject property to the north of the property. It is outside of the 50-foot no build, and there is no disturbance, obviously, within the 25-foot no disturb. The wetland area is for the most part located to the east off the subject property, with the buffer zone, both the 25, 50, and 100 all encompassing essentially most of the proposed Lot 8. The application before you is for construction of a single-family dwelling, a driveway with associated grading, landscaping, and utility installation within the buffer zone. No waivers are required. All work is outside of the 50-foot no build. The area between the 25 and the 50, there is no work that exceeds the 50% requirement for the development between the 25 and 50 due to the associated vegetated wetland. And based on groundwater information that we have, test pits that we had done within the roadway system that we did for the drainage, the foundation system will meet the 2-foot groundwater separation for the parcel. The lots themselves are completely serviced by municipal water and also municipal sewer. So it's a fairly straightforward application, driveway, single-family dwelling, and that is the extent of the application before you for Lot 8. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Art. So if we could take away the screen share, thank you. Commissioners, any questions? So Paul?
Yes.
Could you explain the road layout a little more? It seems like a fairly steep gradient. Is that going to have any effect on the wetland, or is it the fact that I'm not very good at reading plans?
No, it's not very steep at all, actually.
Okay.
It's the roadway setup is it's a gravel, completely gravel base. The end of the road has a drainage system which consists of a stone channel which feeds subsurface leaching pits. There is then a grass swale on the southerly side of the roadway connecting the drainage areas. So all the drainage is basically connected to a subsurface system. Nothing flows towards the wetland area. And the grade itself is not very steep at all, Ian. So
Great.
Yep.
Thanks, Paul.
And that was the subject of the prior, there is an existing notice of intent just for the construction of the roadway within your jurisdiction.
Great. Any questions from members of the public? Would you like to close, Paul?
Yes, I would, please.
Do we have everything we need to close, Jeff?
Yes, you do.
Motion to close made by Mark, seconded by Joe. So afraid they pipped you to the post there, Tim. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to Somerset Nominee Trust, 14 Somerset Road, Lot 9. Paul.
Correct. Thank you again, Paul Santos, for the applicant, Somerset Nominee Trust. This is a development of Lot 9 within the Bittersweet Lane subdivision. This lot is located to the south of Bittersweet Lane. This lot itself is larger in size than Lot 8. This contains approximately 37,665 square feet. It is not located within a mapped flood zone. It is not mapped under the Mass Endangered Species Act. And again, this lot is a single-family dwelling serviced by a driveway outside of the 25-foot no disturb, outside of the 50-foot no build. No waivers would be required again with regard to groundwater separation in the foundation system. The lot is serviced by public sewer and municipal water. Again, the area between the 25 and the 50-foot buffer zones, the disturbance is not in excess of 50% with regard to disturbance in that particular zone. That's basically it. Again, happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions? And I guess I neglected to ask the landscaping. Are there any proposals for landscaping at this point, or between the
At this
25 and 50?
At this point, these are generic building envelopes. I would suspect
Okay.
Once these lots are kind of developed further and there's a designer involved, that I would be back before you with either a minor modification or an amended order specifically to deal with landscape and maybe the exact house dimensions and so forth.
Great, thank you, Paul. Any questions from members of the public? And Paul, you'd like to close, I assume?
Yes, we do have a DEP file number and I would like to close, yes.
Great, and Jeff, we can proceed. Thank you. So a motion to close, please. Thank you, Joe. And Tim, would you like to second? Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Ian, if I could, I know
Please.
when you continuances, I have 2 amended order of conditions for the 4 Marinaway and 6 Marinaway subdivision.
Yeah,
Those were requested to be continued today. So I just wanted to, and we did I think that the abutters were advised of that, but I don't know if that was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting.
it wasn't because I was unaware of it.
Okay,
So, all right, thank you. So
And
you're
then
continuing until November 16th?
November 16th, yes. So
Yeah,
in case,
okay. Great,
don't think-
thanks, Paul.
all right, thank you very much.
Yeah. So that brings us on to 8 High Brush Path LLC, 8 High Brush Path. And
Continued.
Brian Madden,
This is one that requested to
It's
be.
continued.
thank you. I can't even read my own notes. I apologize, everybody. All right.
We'll yell at
then-
you again if we have to.
So this, so Stobie and Dorset, 57 Wall Street, 58 and 60 Hulbert Avenue. And Mark Ritz representing them.
Good evening, Mark Ritz from Site Design Engineering, representing the applicants at 57 Walsh, 58 and 60 Hulbert. We have quite a few parcels here for one property. The project before you this evening is a request to do some modifications to an existing residence, primarily the addition of some porches and reconfiguration of some stairs. The only resource area on property is land subject to coastal storm flowage. The second portion of the project is to construct a garage dwelling on the southwestern corner of the property. This will be a slab on grade with flow-through panels to allow for proper flood zone flowage. And then there will be some adjustment to existing landscaping on property. We're not proposing any grading or fill. Just some of the landscaped areas are going to be changed to different planting configurations, all native plant species. That's pretty much the extent of the project here.
Thank you, Mark. Would appear to be pretty straightforward. Is there any comment from commissioners or members of the public? And hearing and seeing none, Mark, would you like to close?
Please.
Jeff, are we?
You got all the info.
Thank you. Motion to close. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Mark. By roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you, Mark. That brings us on to Squam Partners LLC, 89 Squam Road. Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before the commission for a project with notice of intent for a proposed pool with hardscaping within the 100-foot buffer zone to a coastal bank. There are also the pool mechanicals and a small portion of the patio are within 100 feet of the vegetated wetland. Those are approximately 90 feet away from that area. The pool and the patio are outside of the 50-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank. This is a very stable vegetated bank with a dune at the base. It's not eroding. We believe the project meets all the relevant performance standards. We will help to request a continuance as we are waiting for final review from Natural Heritage, but we'd like to know if there were any questions or additional information that may be needed from the commission.
Thank you, Art. And you said no waivers.
That's correct.
Yeah. So, any questions, anybody? So, seeing none, we'll continue that until November 16th.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that brings us on to Seven Doors Nominee Trust, 13 Lincoln Avenue. And you're up again, Art.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very similar application. You are proposing a pool. This time we are within 100 feet of a isolated vegetated wetland. This is up on top of the hill at Lincoln Circle. And there is a coastal bank on the abutting property. We are greater than 50 feet away from both resource areas for the with the pool. Some of the hardscaping is within 50 feet. There's no work proposed within 25 feet. This is all within an existing, landscaped area on this particular property. There's actually a patio and it's above a retaining wall. And all the work would be, it's in very close proximity to the house, as you can see on the plan. And we believe there would be no adverse impact on any of the interests protected by the commission. The access would be from the paved road at Lincoln Circle around the house. And we'd be happy to address any questions or concerns. We understand and would, of course, accept the standard conditions that the commission has been imposing for pools in the buffer zone.
Thank you, Art. Any questions? Linda?
From the map, it looks like the edge of that pool is right smack on the edge of the bluff with no cheating back at all. And so if you're sitting in that pool, you're looking straight down the hill. I'm well familiar with the property. I lived at 10. My grandparents almost bought 7 doors, except that there were literally 7 doors that were only 6 feet high, and they said, forget it. So I'm well familiar with this property, but I'm just concerned about the site plan. Looks like that literally, if you hang on the edge of that pool, you're looking straight down the hill. So it's right at smack right on top of the edge of the bluff. Is that the correct reading of that plan? Through you, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, absolutely. Art?
Through you. There's an existing retaining wall, and so we would be staying behind that retaining wall. And yes, there is, that slope that's there is downhill from the pool, if you will, but we don't have any particular concern with the siting of that. And I'm not sure that really it would fall under any of the performance standards related to the Wetland Protection Act or the local regulations.
Okay. It's just a grave concern that it's that much weight on top of that, right on the edge of the bluff. I know the retaining wall's there, but that's a lot of disturbance up there.
I would just add through you, Mr. Chair, if I could, that slope isn't actually a coastal bank due to the slope of the ground and the intersection of the flood zone with the bottom of the slope per the coastal bank policy 92-1.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Art. And it's reassuring to know that it's not going to result in any disturbance. I'm sure it's in everybody's interest that it doesn't. So, any further questions? Any questions from members of the public? Art, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. A motion to close? Thank you, Joe. Seconded by,
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Linda. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So thank you, Art. That brings us on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 70 Washington Street, Rachel Freeman.
I have to recuse from this one, Mr. Chairman. I'm involved with moving the structure.
All right, thank you, Linda.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to represent this application for the land bank.
So represented by Art Gasparo.
So this is a notice of intent and for the removal of the existing structure and restoration of the disturbed area around there. Also removal of the existing patio and then the installation of a split rail fence parallel to the road. I think it's a clear net benefit project to the protected interests. Improvement really to wetland scenic views. With that, I'd really be happy to address any questions or concerns that you might have with the project.
Thank you, Art. Any questions? Any questions from members of the public?
Not too many houses left along Washington Street.
What?
Not too many houses left along the street.
No, for good reason.
It is a velocity zone.
So Art, you'd like to close?
Yes, please.
Jeff, may we proceed?
Yes, you may.
And thank you, Mark, for your motion to close, and seconded by Joe. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye, with Linda Williams recused.
Thank you.
Thanks, Art. So this brings us on to Nantucket Land Trust, 4 Baltimore Street, 8 and 10 Chicago Street, and 30 Starbuck Road. David Haynes, Esquire. Good evening.
Good evening to you all. Hope you had as beautiful day there as we had here. This is a notice of intent. It's very similar to one we did last winter at 3 Baltimore. This is across the street. It's 4 Baltimore, but it also includes other parcels, 8 and 10 Chicago and 30 Starbuck, which are actually the 2 on Chicago are within the buffer zone and contain resource areas. The 30 Starbuck is completely outside, but we included it because we had to go to natural heritage on this whole thing. So we bundled it all together as one. This is a proposal to continue to do what's been done for a while, and that is seasonal or yearly or less than yearly mowing of the area to manage the vegetation, keep it down as a sandplain grassland, sandplain heathland, create a fire break, and several other reasons. Nantucket Land Trust has been doing this, and they did stop 3 years ago when they started to ask the question, do we need are we supposed to have a permit for this? And I said, well, it would be a very good idea. You are in the buffer zone there's a vegetated wetland through the middle. I don't know if Jeff has had a chance to look at it. It's it's very strange. There's land subject. It's right on the ocean. The beach is to the south. Nantucket Beach is to the south. There's a coastal dune on lots on the 8 and 10 Chicago, which are across the front, and they tie into a vegetated wetland. It is isolated vegetated wetland between the dune and Baltimore Street. There's also land subject to coastal storm flowage is overwash across the dune that extends into the property. As in terms of the work that we're doing no work within 37 and a half feet of either the isolated wetland or the boundary of the coastal dune. We are doing some cutting of the land subject to coastal storm flowage with no land or soil disturbance. It will be done as we did over on Baltimore. We did have a provision in the notice and in the last notice for seeding any areas that are made bare during the mowing process, and it didn't have to be done over on 3. And this is a much more managed area. I doubt if we'll have to do any seeding. If we do any seeding, the Natural Heritage last time put a requirement on that we use only native species, native to the county, and that did not contain any of the plants on the watch list or concerns for invasive. So we would be happy to do that. We have filed with Natural Heritage. We haven't gotten a response yet, so we would like a continuance. We also don't have a file number, I just realized. And I realized that the reason there is probably because there was an error in the checks that were sent and we had to straighten that out. So I will make a call tomorrow and try to make sure that we're on track for next time. So we will be asking for a continuance until the next meeting. If you have any questions, please come forward.
Thank you, David. Any questions? Joe?
I seem to recall that we got a letter from a resident of that area who was complaining about some some things being cut down that either shouldn't have or something to that effect. I can't locate that letter right now, but that's what I seem to recall.
I could. Please, thank you, David.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same person or not, Joe, but a person named Mr. Arthur Tiger made a phone call, called me. I did talk to him. I recommended that he talk to Tony Butler, who's the person running this for the land trust, and about his concerns. I don't know if it's the same person or not, but we seem to have satisfied his concerns that the shrubs in back of his house would remain. That area, if that is it, it is that area. It's the area over on Starbuck, which is outside of the. It's not within your jurisdiction, but it's also an area that's been mowed for at least the last 15 years. So, but I think we've satisfied him. But I would like to find out who that is and have Mr. Butler speak to him to satisfy any concerns.
Thank you, David. There's obviously going to be sort of demarcations for the mowing.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it will be staked out beforehand. There was also in the order of conditions for the previous vegetative management project on 3 Baltimore. There was the order required a pre-work construction meeting with the Conservation Commission, which is accepted.
As a matter of curiosity, since Seth isn't here, are there any sort of unusual plants that are growing in, I assume, brackish conditions when there's an overwash, or does it make no difference?
It's a very dry wetland.
Okay.
It's as dry as you can imagine. It does have some hydric soils, but it's typical. I can't even remember what the vegetation is. It's all grasses and some groundsel tree and things like that. Nothing terribly unusual. It's definitely not a salt marsh in there. It does have some salt marsh vegetation, but it very rarely sees water. It gets some, if there's a storm, it'll get it through the surrounding property.
I'm gonna call Doug.
Great, thank you.
Don't call him.
Thank you, Linda. Jeff, do I see your hand up?
I was just gonna say, on our site inspection, we didn't find any vegetation that wouldn't be expected to be in that area. It's all pretty standard native vegetation for that habitat type.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Any further questions from commissioners? Otherwise, I believe I see a member of the public. Please identify yourself for our new minute taker, as well as ourselves.
Hello, my name is Susanna Sheehan. My husband and I, Emmett, we own 54 Starbuck Road and 54 Rear Starbuck Road. We are permanent residents of Duxbury, Mass, so not too far away. I just wanted to introduce ourselves and say I was the one, or we were the one who submitted a letter. It wasn't a complaint about it all. It's just more of a, hello, we're here. Our land at 54R Starbuck abuts this, the mowing area at 30 Starbuck, and it's been mowed by someone repeatedly, not by us, for the last, I don't know, since 2009. We don't have a problem with that, but there are no boundaries. Our septic system is on that. I don't know if that makes a difference, but maybe someone should just be aware that it is contiguous land, along with number 2 Starbuck, which kind of goes in behind all the other houses at Starbuck Road. And I just wanted to bring that to someone's attention that, you know, the mowing goes on a little bit more, but it's fine.
Well, thank you, Ms. Sheehan. And David is. would he-
Mr. Chairman, if you would like to speak to Mr. Butler, I can get you his phone number and he would be happy to speak to you to go over specific concerns and back of people's properties and intrusion into it.
That would be wonderful. Yes, thank you.
Excellent. So would you, Ms. Sheehan, would you like to get in touch with Jeff so Jeff can forward the information to David?
Jeff. Yes,
Jeff Carlson, our administrator,
yes. So I get in touch with him?
unless there's a
Yeah.
better way to do it. That way
No,
he
I
can
can do
forward
that.
the information.
Sure,
So,
just feel free to reach out to our, to the Natural Resources Office.
Okay,
To either myself, Will DeLerba, who's on the call, or Lisa Graves, our office manager, and we
Okay.
can get you David's contact information. Or if you need it quicker, if you go on to the town agendas and minutes and page and look at the digital filing for here, David's information is listed on the first page of the notice of intent application. But it's probably faster for us to mine it out for you if you need it.
okay. I can do that. Thank you very much for your help.
No problem.
you're welcome. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
So, Joe?
That was the letter I was referencing, by the way.
Oh, good. Excellent. All right. So, and so, David, you'll be continuing this until November 16th?
Yes, please.
Thank you. All right, that's the limit of notices of intent. And then we have two
Mr. Chairman?
amended orders of conditions.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I hate to interrupt, but you still have to accept the withdrawal.
Thank you, Jeff. I don't know what I'd do without you. So may I have a motion to accept the withdrawal of Somerset LLC 5 High Brush Path? And thank you, Joe, and seconded by, thank you, Tim. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams.
And Mr. Chairman, I have to leave. I'll be switching to my phone for a short time.
Okay, well, and enjoy your evening, Linda. So, all right, so we have amended orders of conditions, 63 Halbert LLC, 63 Halbert Avenue, Mark Ritz.
Good evening, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 63 Halbert. This is a project that went through permitting with the commission relatively recently, and the initial permitting was to elevate the existing single-family residence to get it out of the flood zone and to do some building reconfiguration. The amendment request before you tonight includes some proposed building additions outside the 50-foot buffer to a coastal bank on this property, which is a timber bulkhead. Basically, there are a few building additions. They'll be constructed on the same type of flood compliant pier foundation as the rest of the building. Some of the proposed building additions enclose existing deck or existing porches. That's the main building work. There's also a deck on the seaward side of this property, which is almost entirely inside the 25-foot buffer zone. Previous approval allowed the applicant to reconstruct the deck in place. And the reconstructed deck was to be essentially just above grade with steps coming down from the house to the deck. The steps were going to be on the deck. The applicant would like to elevate that deck to meet the first floor grade of the house and to instead have steps inset into the northern portion of the deck. There's no change in footprint. It's basically just, instead of having the deck just above grade, it'll now be elevated to meet the first floor with steps coming down to the bulkhead inset in the existing deck footprint. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from commissioners? Mark Beal.
Thank you, Chairman Golding. Mark, I'm a little concerned with raising that deck. At grade, it doesn't trouble me so much, but suddenly you're raising it. And then the next step will be a porch over it, an awning, and then they'll want to glass it in. And you're working within the 25, which is grandfathered, I assume, and we had a permit for the reconstruction of that deck. But I'm uncomfortable raising it, frankly. I think that you're talking about doing a lot more structural work, and I think I would be uncomfortable with that anywhere but at grade. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. It sort of mirrors my concern, and also Mark Ritz. I had difficulty figuring out sort of the extent of the deck from the drawing. So would you like to point that out? Would we like to screen share and point it out again?
Certainly,
Thank you.
if somebody can bring up that screen share again. You'll see, yeah, right where that blue window is. If you see the
Right.
two heavier black lines, that is the extent of the existing deck. And that is also the extent of the proposed deck. Now, the existing deck isn't exactly at grade. It's on typical deck pier supports. It's up. I forget exactly what the existing elevation is, but it's up, at least probably 2 feet above existing grade. The original first floor elevation on the building was about 6.5 feet, and they're bringing it up to 11.2. So it's going up about 4.5 feet. The proposed deck would have the same number of supports. It would be the same size. It would just be lifted up to meet that first floor. Now, any concerns with enclosing that structure, there are no requests to do that. It is entirely up to the commission in the future to allow or not allow, if anybody were to ask that. I'm assuming the commission wouldn't allow that because it's, quite frankly, inside the 25-foot buffer, and there's no, the commission doesn't have to approve that kind of work. I mean, this is just a request to reconstruct the existing deck about 5 feet higher than it currently is. Just to walk out of the house onto the deck instead of walking out of the house going down some steps onto the deck. I don't know, I can't give you any assurances of what someone might request in the future, but I don't believe the commission would be under any pressure to approve any additional building footprint. We're maintaining the seaward side of the building as it is. We're maintaining the portion of the building inside the 50 as it is. All proposed building additions are going outside the 50.
So thank you, Mark. But so what I didn't understand fully was it looked to me as though it was independent of the building. So I don't see it, the existing dwelling. It seems to be considerably removed from the existing dwelling as drawn on the plans. Am I missing something here?
What you're seeing, the right above that existing deck label on the plan, those are the proposed steps set into the deck.
Right.
But the deck goes from the dashed green line, which is the bulkhead and the limit of the resource area, all the way to the existing dwelling. It's those the two thicker black lines that run roughly north-south. Those are the outer, the sides of that deck. So it goes from the bulkhead to the house. And currently there's a step on that deck, and the approval was to rebuild the deck at its existing elevation and have 5 or 6 steps coming out of the house down onto the deck. The steps were going to be on top of the deck, within the deck footprint. The request is now to just elevate that deck 5 or 6 feet and to have those steps be set into the northern portion of the deck footprint, bringing you down to basically the top of the bulkhead and the path that goes out to the dune and beach. But there's no change in footprint.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Thank you,
I'm
Jeff.
gonna share my
I'm
screen.
still-
This may be helpful to look at the aerial photograph. So you'll see the house here in blue when I put it up there. And you can see that there's a deck where he's talking about, if it helps to kind of see it and place it in space.
Thank you.
So if you can see, here's the house where I'm kind of highlighting, and
Right.
there's an existing deck there. So it's a little misleading. It's not really misleading on the plan. Is instead of leaving it in place, raising the house and putting stairs onto the deck, they would like to raise the deck and put the stairs inside the existing footprint of the deck to the top of the bulkhead.
Got you.
So it's
Okay.
not a new structure per se. It's just being reconstructed. If that makes sense to people, or if that's helpful.
It does, but it's continuous from the house to the bulkhead. And it's not shown as such on the plan. Right?
So if you're looking at.
Oh,
the
I see.
right,
Okay,
so
sorry.
it's tough
Yep.
because between the
Got
green
you.
line and the red line,
Yeah,
the bulkhead line it gets tricky because those lines stack up and it's hard to tell. But it does show it.
thank you. The penny has dropped finally. Thank you for your patience. So, Mark?
Yes, no, thank you. I think that does help me too, because with the stairs integrated into the deck, I think that's a
Right.
solution that works.
Yeah. Okay, good. So thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Mark Ritz, for bearing with us. So
Okay.
are there any further questions from commissioners or members of the public? And if not,
Hold on. 1 second, Mr. Chairman. We have a couple comments on the YouTube.
I don't have that on my screen.
All right, I do. So
Okay,
just
Thank
to
you.
read those. Caroline Balzer, 63 Holbert Avenue, who's an abutter here. She has said she has concern about the height of the proposed deck on the dunes. This would be the tallest beach structure on the whole Holbert Avenue beach. And then she requested the Zoom link just to kind of run through all of them. That's there. So I tried to send it to her in time, but hopefully she gets it.
all right. So,
Ian,
yes, Mark.
that question, I think, would be before the HDC, wouldn't it?
Jeff? Is that something we'd like to consider to ask for a cross-section for, watershed views, I suppose? And because Mark, you brought that up initially, and then with an abutter wanting to participate, Mark Ritz, do you have cross-sectional views? Are they available?
I don't have anything that I can provide immediately. We could certainly do that if the commission would like us to, but I don't have anything on hand at the moment.
Well,
May I follow up, Ian?
Oh, please, Mark, do.
So Mark, will this go before the HDC for the raising that deck?
I am not 100% certain, but I believe we're before you now because the building has gone through HDC and has been reconfigured based on some HDC discussions. I can't speak to that with 100% certainty, but I believe that the plan in front of you is the result of the HDC process.
I'd just be curious to know if they approved the 11-foot high deck.
That's an elevation of 11 feet. That's the existing grade there is about 5 to 5.5 feet. So the deck is only about 6 feet above grade.
I misspoke, Mark. Excuse me. I meant to say.
I just wanted to make sure it's not 11 feet off the ground. It's just about 5 feet off.
Well, I certainly would be interested in seeing a cross section. Jeff, do you have any words of wisdom?
No, I just, Ms. Balser added another comment to her YouTube comment that said that the HDC has sent it back for revisions. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was entered as a comment. I just wanted to make sure we got it in correct.
So, Mark Ritz, would you mind providing us with a cross section and continuing this?
Not at all. We can continue to the next meeting and get a cross section view showing that elevated deck.
Thank you. Is that do my fellow commissioners feel that's a reasonable request? Thank you, Mark Beal. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. And thank you, Mark Ritz. So to be continued until the until November 16th. And great. So that brings us on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 19 Walwinet Road.
I have to recuse from this, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Linda, thank you. And Art, are you going to be presenting this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So I'm before you tonight with a request on behalf of the Land Bank for an amended order of conditions related to the proposed farm operation at Eat Fire Spring, the old Tim Madden, Dr. Pearl property. And we really wanted to get the details of the farm plan before the commission. And so that's been as they've since the order was originally issued, they've been working with the farmer, Mr. Feeney, who's also on with us, to develop more specific protocols and plan for how the land will be managed and farmed. And specific to the request before the commission is related to the fencing. For your consideration, the approval in the order of conditions was for a permanent 8-foot deer fence, which is obviously crucial to a farm operation, probably anywhere on the island. And that was to follow the 25-foot buffer zone. But there are existing fields with pastures that are going to be farmed, which extend into the 25-foot buffer zone. And so there's two alternatives that have been presented in the request for relocate, either using instead of a permanent fence, an electrified mesh type of fence that could be moved, or to shift the approved deer fencing into the 25, but along the existing disturbed area and fields, with a provision to remove the small mesh along the bottom of that fencing, so that essentially it would stop the deer but not small rodents and mammals and rabbits, that type of wildlife. Again, in this particular situation, we believe that with all the other protective measures for the environment that have been included in the farm plan, the sampling, the careful detail and land management that's happening here, that the deer being, having to go around the field, if you will, this does not create essentially a complete barrier, that there would not be any adverse impact on wildlife through allowing that fence to be shifted to the edge of the field. And with that, we'd be happy to address any questions that you may have with the application.
Thank you, Art. Questions, concerns? So I know deer can slip under surprisingly low gaps. So what are the dimensions of the gap going to be, Aidan?
So
Aidan Feeney for Fogtown Farm for our minute taker. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no worries. So what we thought might be a good idea, really thinking about like spotted turtles and things like that, was to just remove the really fine mesh at the bottom. That is normally used for rabbits, but because rabbits aren't really a concern of ours, we would just leave the normal mesh that I think is about 8 inches square or so. So the deer won't be able to pass through, but anything, smaller will be able to really.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Jeff, are there any questions on YouTube?
No, no one has typed any in.
Great. So a motion to approve this minor mod?
Oh, this is an amended order of conditions.
Sorry?
This is an amended order of conditions.
God almighty.
It's only 6:18.
Do I hand my resignation in now or at the end of the meeting?
All right, that's why I'm here.
So, all right. So to approve, is that a motion or is that a question, Mark? A motion. All right.
No, it's a question, Ian.
Yes, go ahead.
In their application, they're asking they have option A and option 1 and 2. Are they asking us if they have Aidan have a preference, or am I reading it wrong?
The preference would be the permanent fence. I think that would,
Right.
But we wanted to, sort of lay out alternatives for the commission.
I got you. So we should probably have that in our decision then, that we like the permanent fence. I'm all for it.
And thank you, Mark. I was sort of making that assumption, and I apologize for making that assumption. So I can't see any advantage to the resource area to moving it backwards and forwards personally. So, but
So if I can hop in just for really quickly, in a lot of situations,
when it comes to rabbits, Jeff.
Well, rabbits where I live are like the scourge of our existence.
Right.
They're everywhere. But deer fortunately are not, because we have a giant fence. But typically under the Mass Wetlands Protection Act and even our local bylaw, this activity for regular maintenance of land and agricultural use, these activities are typically exempt, right? You can erect fences and even relocate fences and do it if you are qualifying. We're working with the land bank to try to get that clarified and worked out a little bit. And in the interim, they've graciously come in for permitting. So I think from our level, we're happy to see this go through and permanent fences to operate. That's there. When we square that away, one of our big problems that we have is the way it was always established here was by like state tax code, and there's a minimum size for agriculture. And I think we can all agree that 5 acres in Worcester and 5 acres in Nantucket are extremely different. And a lot easier to come by in Worcester than they are here, especially in kind of contiguous pieces. So we're trying to puzzle out a way to hopefully make that so, you know, folks like Aiden and other spots that are going to hopefully be on land bank pieces and do that can have successful agricultural operations without too much hassle and can do it responsibly. And I'll just say, just for the record, the stuff that they've done over on Hummock Pond Road and another super sensitive site with wetlands has been great and gone really well. So I think we're staff wise really supportive of this amendment.
Well, great, Jeff. Thank you very much for fleshing that out. So very interesting. And Aiden, I wish you every success. And Mark,
I'll make a motion to approve it with the permanent fence.
Excellent, thank you. And Joe Pandowski seconds it. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams is, I guess, is no longer on.
Recused. I was recused from that.
Oh, you were recused? Thank you, Linda. Ian Golding, aye, with Linda Williams recused.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. So, all right, let's see if I can straighten this out. And so this brings us no request for determination of applicability. And for minor mods, the first is Moulin, 27 Winoma Way, Jeff Blackwell.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. We obtained a order of conditions to construct a beach stairs and a path to the top of the beach stairs, the landing, a year or two ago. And the beach stairs were constructed and instead of a footpath, a wooden walkway was built at grade. The area that was brush cut by a small cutter to create the footpath left a lot of natural stubble and somewhat difficult for walking. The footpath and the now boardwalk on top of it is very level. There's no erosion taking place. In fact, a footpath would be more prone to creating erosion near the top of the elevated landform, which is not a coastal bank. The nearest coastal dune to the this boardwalk is 62 feet, and that's to the point where the boardwalk meets the landing at the top elevated landform. So it's really it's well beyond the 50-foot minimum setback for a structure, and it actually protects the ground surface from the development of a eroding path. So we would ask that this minor modification be allowed. Beach stairs, which are the subject of a request for a certificate of compliance just a little bit further down the agenda, were constructed in compliance with the order of conditions. And we would ask that you consider allowing this minor modification. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So I personally can't see any reason why not. Does any commissioner want to weigh in? No? Then with the motion to approve this minor mod. Thank you, Joe. seconded by, thank you, Tim. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
That brings us on to DuPont, 47 Millbrook Road. Brian Madden.
Thank you very much, Brian Madden from LEC representing the applicant. The minor mod is for some minor reconfiguration of the driveway parking spaces, some associated landscaping, a proposed stone retaining wall along the edge of the driveway, and a proposed 10 by 14 foot shed. The shed and the retaining wall are located outside the 50-foot buffer zone. And the work is taking place within the previously approved limit of work. Turn over
Great.
to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions? And seeing none, a motion to approve this minor mod. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Mark Beal. Thank you, Mark. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. And that brings us on to Family Ties AC LLC, 11 Alliance Lane. Brian?
Thank you. This minor mod is for some proposed grade changes, some porches, steps being added to the guest house, in a relocated septic tank and pump chamber, with some updates to utilities and landscaping. No changes to the limit of work. Everything remains structurally outside the 50-foot buffer zone, and no waivers were required for this project. So all minor updates.
Great, thank you. Any questions? A motion to approve. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So
Thank you very much.
Brian.
Thank you.
And this brings us on to certificates of compliance. So Moulin, again, 27 Winoma Way.
Thank you, Jeff Blackwell, for the Moulin family.
Thank you.
With the the request for certificate of compliance covers the wooden walk, the actual boardwalk, or the beach stairs down to the bottom of the elevated landform. The beach stairs were constructed in conformance with the permit, and I would ask that certificate of compliance be issued.
Not that one, though.
Thank you.
Could you please mute your phone? Thank you. So
So
excellent. So Jeff, do you?
Yeah, we did our site inspection, and with the minor mod that passed, we agree that it can receive a certificate of compliance.
Great. So a motion to do just that. Thank you, Joe. Seconded by Mark Beal. Thank you, Mark. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So thank you, Jeff. And that brings us on to Moore's Realty Trust, 14 Totomo Way, excuse me. Ay.
So 14 Totibo Road was for some work on an existing retaining wall and a little bit of cleanup work. And they ended up having to move a bunch of stone, and they ended up moving it to line the edges of their driveway instead of being on the beach there. But all that work is done and in compliance, and we're recommending that that can be issued.
Great, thank you, Jeff. So a motion to issue as described. Thank you, Joe. And seconded by Tim Brain. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to orders of conditions. And there's been a slight difference in order if anybody from the public is watching. So Stacy from 14 Clover Lane and trustees reservations are no longer in contention. So we start off with 46 Shimo Pond Road Nominee Trust. So
Yes, so that was the one that you guys closed tonight. I didn't draft an order for that because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. But that's the groin repair project. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or
well,
what you guys would like me to write, or I'll be honest, what more you would like Will to write for the next meeting, and me to proofread. So
well, let's throw him into the deep end and get both a negative and a positive.
that's dirty pool.
So well, I guess it's the shallow end since it's groins, but nonetheless, well, so may I hear from our commissioners? Do you feel that should be a positive order of conditions? I've made my reservations plain.
I'm comfortable with positive, given the grandfathering and what Bailey said about it.
Thank you, Linda. And I think you're joined by Tim and you're joined by Mark Beal.
Well, for once, Linda and I agree on something.
Yeah, don't count on it any again.
Okay. No, boys and girls. Okay. All right. So there you go. There you have your answer. Will? Okay. Great. So that brings us on to Stacy, 14 Clover Lane.
Yes. So this is the one that we closed last time. This was the pool. And for those who don't remember, this is the one where we had multiple attorneys and abutters and all that fun stuff. Make it sound so pleasant that way. So I did include from my notes our standard pool conditions, and then I did have a couple additional ones that we added. So we have our normal pool stuff that's been revised to include the reference to the illicit discharge regulations and the lighting regulations. And then I added condition 24 that just said to minimize impact to wildlife, the pool equipment and generator screening shall include auditory shields to minimize noise from the equipment. Any visual screening that involves planting shall be native species with no call to forest allowed. And did a little bit of research. There are like 1 million different products that can go up in and around that machinery that are essentially padding and things to mitigate that noise coming off. So that technology clearly exists and is something that's readily available. So I think requiring some level of noise screening on those is not an overly cumbersome ask, to say the least.
Well, so thank you, Joe. Please, or I shouldn't say thank you, Joe. Joe, you have a comment to make?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
In a letter that was written by someone who lives close to this particular property, one of the things they requested is that water be brought in to fill the pool versus a well. I don't support bringing the water in if there's a well on that property. Let them pump it out. In terms of draining, if there's any draining to be done, that ought to probably go off the property. But if it comes to filling, then in the springtime or summertime, just do it off the well. Don't haul water in. And I don't know if that's mentioned in a letter that we got, but I don't know if I don't know how Jeff put this all together. I'm looking at the document now. But it was modified.
No, I can say I didn't put any findings or any conditions related to filling the pool.
Good, thank you.
Okay. So I sort of had reservations about the auditory shields, although I'm happy to include them under the impact to wildlife. Because I can, everybody knows how they can be such a damn nuisance. So, but
It is something that Seth had asked for specifically. So that's why.
so how do we specify what an auditory shield is?
Well, I'll just say I just Googled simply auditory shields for pool equipment and had about 1,000 choices. So
Okay.
some of it's like foam padding that would go around it. Some of it is a different material, but it's not uncommon. I know it's been used on.
I can help you with that if you need it, because the HCC requires these shields. And generally speaking, they're 4-foot high, natural to weather board fences with planting around them. And that seems to work the best on almost every pool that they approve. As well as the drainage, the ZBA, we've been over this before, the ZBA has a whole list of stuff for these pools in these areas. I mean, there's at least 12 things, and you might want to incorporate what we've said this before also, the HCC, the ZBA approves for pools, because it's quite extensive, including draining, certain months you can't drain it, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you, Linda. And so I was wondering whether we should be more specific, but it sounds as though it's not necessary. But I noticed that both Joe and Will have their hands up. So Joe?
Yes, one way to measure noise level is decibels, but I don't know whether that appears in some of these options that Jeff has mentioned or Linda has mentioned.
So Linda, could you mute thank you, dear. Jeff, do you want to reply? I don't think there are any standards for dB for ACs, unfortunately.
I'd have to check our noise bylaw, but not something within the
Right.
Action Act.
And Will?
I was just gonna say I can look into it more. I'm not sure if there's like an actual standard for acceptable noise or whatever, but I do know that there's a bunch of different name brand products out there, like Acoustablock is one of them. And it's similar if you've ever been in like a music studio where there's foam padding up on the walls. It's similar to that, but it's for outdoor use. And they'll put up like a privacy fence around the pool equipment, and then they'll put this Acoustablock padding on the inside facing the pool equipment, and actually absorbs sound waves.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Linda, do you have a comment? No. Okay. So
I think she did, but I think somehow she got remuted.
I can't raise my hand on my phone, but just to bolster what Will said, the HCC is actually, and the ZBA is actually required inside that 4-foot natural to weather fence. They've actually required that foam noise deadening, which is not visible on the outside for the HCC purposes, but they've actually required that sound deadening foam on the inside of the fence. So that is always a possibility. We've used it before.
thank you, Linda. So I guess, Mark, please.
Thank you. And maybe Linda can help us here, Ian, and that is this within our jurisdiction to ask someone to deaden the sound of a pool equipment?
Well, only in as much as it qualifies, I think, to impact on wildlife.
Okay, that sounds good.
So I think probably I've led us down something of a red herring here because it would seem to me that that is pretty subjective. So we probably need to leave it the way it is. And thank you
Well,
for your patience.
Herrings are wildlife too.
So,
Even the red ones.
all right. So, all right. So now I've lost track. Do we have any amendments to this or is it as drafted?
It would be as drafted.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So move to approve as drafted. Thank you, Tim. And thank you, Joe, by roll call vote. Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. Thank you, everybody, for that. So that brings us on to Somerset Nominee Trust, 14 Somerset Road, Lot 8. And do we combine the two, Jeff? Lot 8 and Lot 9, are they going to be the same?
I'm not gonna lie, they're exactly the same outside.
Exactly.
I mean, same plan and everything. So
Yeah,
the only
okay.
difference is one says lot 8 and the other one says lot 9.
right.
But if you
So-
certainly wanted to do them both at the same time, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, okay. Unless I hear otherwise, can we move to approve as drafted? So, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Thank you, Linda. Ian Golding, aye. And that brings us on to 8 High Brush Path.
That was continued.
That was continued.
Yes.
And
The next one would
Custodian
be,
Dorset was continued. Squam Partners was continued. So
the
that
next one we would
brings us,
have would be 57 Walsh Street. Still be in Dorset.
I thought that was, okay, so I got my notes mixed up again. Oh, damn it.
Nope.
Okay.
recall that one.
Stovey and Dorset, 57 Wall Street, 58 and 60 Halbert Avenue.
All right, they look like just the last one. This was pretty straightforward. This was just that garage addition within land subject to coastal storm flowage. A mouthful.
Okay. Any amendments from anyone? Any additions? Move to approve as drafted. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mark. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. And that brings us on to 7 Doors Nominee Trust, 13 Lincoln Avenue.
Yeah, so just to throw it up there really quick. So like I said, this was one where we had the construction of the pool just in the buffer zone to an offsite coastal bank and vegetated wetland. So I have our standard pool conditions in, updated the grading to be offsite. We're in compliance with the illicit discharge regulations. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Jeff. So motion to approve is drafted. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to Nantucket Island Land Bank, 70 Washington Street.
And I'm recused from that.
Thank you, Linda. I'll try and remember that this time around.
So this was for that house removal of the land banks. It looks like Will added in. They provided a pretty specific debris removal protocol. referenced that, and then they were gonna put up snow fencing. And we're calling for that to be removed upon completion of the project as well. There's a waiver because it's literally touching the beach on 2 sides. But other than that, I don't know. Editorially, I think it's a good project to get a structure out of the velocity zone. So.
Right. Right. So, move to approve as drafted. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Joe Landowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams recused, Ian Golding, aye. So that final one is Nantucket Land Trust for Baltimore Street, 8 and 10 Chicago Street, and 30 Starbuck Road, which we don't have anything drafted for. So, in fact, sorry, we don't.
All right, we didn't close that. That was
That's
what
been
we're waiting for.
continued, hasn't it? Sorry,
Yes.
that's been continued.
Sorry.
All right.
Go get a
Well, I'm
fresh-
definitely, my batting average is pretty low this evening. Sorry, everybody.
All right, be careful. If you keep it that low, you might get signed by the Red Sox the way they play this year.
Okay, I won't say anything about the Astros. I have a good friend who is still in mourning. So no extensions of orders, and so that brings us on to other business. And I don't believe we have any minutes yet. And so that
No.
brings us on to monitoring reports.
None this time. I would say
Okay.
though, just real quickly, as a quick aside of monitoring reports, kind of related to the Nantucket Land Trust application. While I was out there, I did take a look at the other fire break that they've cut, and actually it looks really nice. And they've had good regeneration and regrowth in there. And I actually feel like it's something that has turned out rather well.
Great.
It's
Great.
nice to do like re-inspections and see that it's not like gone bad, that it's actually going pretty well.
So Spruce, I think, are you jumping the gun just a hair here?
I don't know if I am, Mr. Chairman, but on far as monitoring reports go, I wonder if there's any updates going to be given with 97 Baxter Road on the geotube project that there's been some comments coming sent to the Natural Resources Department.
On the geotube specific?
Yes. I didn't know if
So-
there's any monitoring reports for them.
Yeah, we'll send whatever reports. I know some stuff that's come in and around out to the commission. And I think it's scheduled already for an agenda item at our next meeting.
Thank you for that. I'll hold my comments to then. Thanks.
Not at all. And because that brings us on to enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions. And we have 79 Baxter Road. And Jeff, would you mind leading off using your letter as a basis, which I thought was a very good one?
Sure. So obviously it's come up and there were some issues with 79 Baxter Road. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my reference material up here at the same time. You guys are going faster than me. For 79 Baxter, obviously there's some work that was done. There's some question to whether or not it was within keeping of 3 different things. All right. So just to kind of run through the history here is this project was originally managed under order of conditions SE 48 1659. A couple years ago, there were issues, in interpreting that order of conditions. And we had issued an enforcement action. And as a resultant of that enforcement action, the commission issued an order to better interpret the original order of conditions that was understood by everyone to be followed. Shortly following that, there was
I think you just froze on us.
a clarification request. 40. Am I frozen still?
You're breaking
back.
up slightly, but
Man, my connection has been kind of junk tonight, so I apologize. I've had a lot of freezes and it actually kicked me out once. So they asked for some clarification whether it applied to just 79 Baxter, which was the original holder of the enforcement action, or for the entire SC 48-1659 permit. And we clarified back to them that it was for the whole order of conditions had to follow this protocol. So we had the report that came in for some work that was in question. We went through our records, and I'll just confirm to everybody that we had not received notice from the contractor doing the work 48 hours prior that they had started. We're not aware of whether or not they staked out high water. We've had issues with staking out high water on that site before because it's out in the water a bit sometimes. And really the biggest question and kind of the largest concern that came to our office's attention, and something that we had hoped to discuss with you guys tonight. And I think I was hoping that they would be there this evening. They were sharing under the enforcement order the sand delivery site between 85 and 87 Baxter Road with the GO2 project. And when there were problems with the soil contamination before, or potential soil contamination before, there were multiple people that were using that. It wasn't being tracked together. SPPF took kind of the lead on that and said they would track that sand. They had understood that some sand had been delivered to that site for use on the core tubes project in front of 79 Baxter and in that general area, and that there was a surplus of sand for them to be used that was still within that sand delivery area. I think our biggest concern, and when we told them that they needed to at least stop through this meeting, that they were beginning to and took sand for about a day, seemingly from the geotubes and from the top of the geotubes, and we weren't aware on how that was being tracked, what volume was being taken from there, because obviously that takes away from the volume that's on the geotubes. If it would have been in the delivery area itself, I don't think that question necessarily would have been the same. Two, but then also, I don't believe the commission has ever authorized the removal of sand from the geotubes onto a different project. The commission had agreed that sand could be moved from the sand delivery area in that common point to either project. And that's something that needs to be rectified because it hasn't been included in their permits or orders previous. So I know that's kind of a lot to digest in there. I think our recommendation from a staff level is to issue out a formal enforcement action, requiring that all work continue to be stopped there until this can be addressed. And the permit holders and the contractors need to be in front of the commission, because they're not in compliance. I think that's pretty simple.
thank you, Jeff. So in the in our digital pack, there are photographs that Deanne Atherton provided. And has everybody had a chance to see them? And now, of course, they're not coming up on my iPad. So if memory serves, it includes what appears to be a hard structure incorporated within the choir rolls, and also a rather remarkable broken toilet. And I think, Jeff, I've mentioned the mission creeps that we really need to have a survey. Now, to what extent that the choir rolls on 79 Baxter Road have gone beyond the original authorized footprint. And it's been pointed out to me that under our removal order, that the special condition under the removal order of September the 2nd, 2021, condition number 2, use of sand, the quote is, all sand within the geotubes and within the sand template should be used to restore the beach area and will be spread evenly within the project area above the mean high water line, which, as it was commented by the person who provided that information, this would apparently preclude SBPF from taking the sand from the insulation to use on another project, which I would have thought would be fairly black and white. But I would have thought it, speaking for myself, as one of 5 commissioners this evening, I think we need a survey as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm happy to communicate that to them. Again, they have noticed that this was an agenda item, wasn't a big secret. It was posted, it was there. I know they provided, Epsilon provided a memo that was in your guys' pack on the sand volumes, but no one else is here. So I think that leads me to just saying that I don't think there's any choice but to issue that enforcement action and maintaining, excuse me, that cease and desist on that until they're here. I really feel like they've taken a lot of options away to have a discussion today by sending a memo and then not doing anything else.
Right. Also, the photograph where it appears to be some form of hard armoring involved, it looks as though it's a continuous line of hard armoring.
So I'll say, are you referring to the wooden wall?
I am, yeah.
So the wooden wall, we've talked about this before. I by no means want to sound like I'm coming to anyone's specific defense or aid. So the tubes that they use in place there, what essentially happens is they create an on-site core log that's filled with sand. They fill it and roll it up and like stitch it on site to do. That wooden board is used to form the seaward side until that tube is full and stitched, and then it's removed. That's at least what has historically been done in all of those cases. So it's a temporary structure. But I think if you want more detail on that, I'll leave it to them to provide. But that's been the description given, and what we've seen historically is it's there for construction of those tubes and then removed.
Thank you, Jeff. It does seem that in looking at the photographs, that it's a fairly continuous vertical wall as opposed to being rounded. But perhaps that's just a trick of perspective. So, but I absolutely feel that we should follow staff's recommendation on this. Does anyone feel any different? And I think also it should include could we include a specific date for a survey, Jeff? I mean, as opposed to it just being drawn out, so that in other words, can we condition the work that work cannot commence until there is a survey presented?
I don't know. I think work should wait until they're in front of you guys. Myself.
I'm sorry?
I think work should wait until they're in front of you guys. Myself.
Oh, absolutely.
So we have kind of a unique opportunity here where our next meeting is technically 3 weeks away as we set up for our holiday break. So I think if you said that we need to have that survey and information in hand by, the Friday before that meeting, that gives 2 weeks to get that information together. I think that's, if it was an open public hearing tonight and it was continued, that's the time that they would have to do it. So I don't think that that's an unfair time request, and if it is, they can certainly apply in writing to ask for an extension to that, or come to the next meeting and say, we need another week to get the survey together. And that's just what it, and that's to your discretion.
Right. Good, thank you. Will, did I see you raise your hand? Okay. So would someone like to make a motion to that effect? That all work cease and that a survey be presented before what is the date for Friday would be Friday the 10th? By Friday the 10th of November?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll give us Joe the first crack at that, and Mark, thank you for your second, and by roll call vote. Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Joe Klandowski.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Thank you, Linda. Ian Golding, aye. So that brings us on to
No, I just want to make sure it doesn't leave it on the table.
and before I continue, Bert, Spruce, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Goulding. I had a couple of questions. What are any of the repercussions of they're not following the no 48-hour notice and the taking of the sand from the geotube? Those seems like two violations there. And those, so that was my first question.
Well, I think the repercussions, the immediate repercussion is that they have to stop work.
And who's the person on record that stop notice of work is going to go to, Chairman?
Jeff?
So we typically send those out, even if they're not a named party directly, to anyone who's listed on the permit, anyone who's listed property owner on the permit. And then we also will send copies to, obviously in this case, Epsilon is involved as they provided documentation on the sand. And then the contractor of record on site is Sumco, and they'll get a copy of that as well.
Chairman Goulding, through you to Jeff, one more question, please. I was wondering if the permit holder is included as SBPF. Are they in that permit? Is that the valid permit that's held right now?
On SE 48-1659,
Yes,
yes,
sir.
they're involved on that. So, and I'll just, before the second question comes up, they're also a property owner in this case, and the town is also a property owner in this case too.
That answered both my questions. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. And for our minute taker, that was Burton Balkind asking those questions. So that brings us on to scheduling for regulation update discussion. And my feeling is that until we have all 7 members, we should hold off on that. I don't know how others feel about that, but yeah, Tim, I see a thumbs up from Tim, and a thumbs up from Will and Joe. So, okay, then, oh, Joe, do you have a question?
I do. Can we schedule a date for that? And perhaps we'll have all members available. Can we, is it at all possible to have that before year end?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
That'll be 18 months that we have been working on this.
It's close to 4 years, actually.
It's been a lot longer than 18 months. So we actually have a pretty light schedule, right? We have a 3-week gap now. I know a couple of the members expressed some concerns about meeting on that in November. A lot of people are traveling and moving around. We only have 1 meeting on the books in December. We only have a meeting on December the 14th. So there's lots of available time within December to get back on that.
All right. So,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, this is a day to discuss the schedule. Is that what we're talking about?
well, it could be. So Joe certainly would like to nail it down. And so in December, we have Thursday, the 7th, there's Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, as well as Hanukkah. And we have a meeting on the 14th. And so I don't know if we would want to have it on a special meeting on that week of from Monday, the 11th through Friday, the 15th, to coincide with the same week that the only meeting that's scheduled for December is on.
If you like, Mr. Chairman, I could put together a list of those other Thursdays in December, or we could always do it on a Monday when we schedule field viewings and things, if there's not going to be a need for those, or if we think there may not be. And we can make that decision at the meeting on the 16th when there's more of us here.
Is that satisfactory for everybody?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you. So reports, Craig.
Just very briefly, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Crack is sending Concom a letter. I don't know if you've received it yet.
I don't
Basically,
believe so.
showing
Linda, would you please
interest
mute your phone? Thank you.
showing interest in being updated on that very subject, the updates to the regulations. So you should be receiving that soon. That was voted in the last meeting. Other than that, that's it.
Thank you, Tim. CPC, Mark?
Yes, thank you. We had our regular meeting on Tuesday last, and it was a standardized meeting where we just approve the spending of funds on projects that are near complete or complete. And then on Friday, we began the interview process for applicants for new funding. And we did 4 or 5 interviews on Friday, and we have maybe 6 or 8 still ahead of us when it's on the 30th of November, I believe. I mean, of October, excuse me.
So there's quite a bit of interest this year.
Yes. Actually, it's well, it doesn't matter when it is. It's October 31st. We're Halloween. We're doing the interviews for the remaining applicants. Hopefully, remaining applicants.
Are there
We'll
any
see.
open space ones or anything along that nature that might affect us?
I don't recall open space with a lot of historic preservation, as you might expect on Nantucket.
Right.
But I don't recall open space ones.
Okay.
And we have money for that too, which is
Right.
always should be organized to be spent.
So NP and EDC, Seth isn't here, but Linda, were you present? Well,
I'm not on the MPDC, but I don't know if there's much activity there right now from what I can tell. The harbor plan, we closed the survey. We've got over 500, I think we mentioned before. We are now probably going to undertake more interviews with stakeholders and go through the matrix, which is what was prepared back in 2009 as to what was and was not completed. And I think we're going to spend each section and go that way, because otherwise I don't think we're going to be just sort of all over the place. So I think we're beginning to get focused on actually what did we do, what did we accomplish, what needs to be done, and what's new on the horizon, particularly as it relates to climate change, coastal resiliency.
great. Well, thank you for that update. And so the perennial shrug of the shoulders, Joe, when it comes to offshore wind work group.
There's a lot of wind, but nothing going on.
Okay. All right. That brings us on to
Chair,
Commissioner's
Ian,
comments.
one comment about
Oh,
that.
yes, sir. Mark?
I
Yeah.
think there are 2 windmills that are up off the South Shore. It's worth a trip to Nobody or Nantucket to give them a look. They're visible, but not terrible. But they're up. And there's a lot more coming. But you can see these are the ones that are nearest us, apparently. So 15 miles away, and they're pretty big.
Well, you know what? I think they're totally works of beauty. So terrible is not a word I would use. And do you still have your boat in the water, Mark? Hint, hint.
Long out of the water.
Okay. Well, so failing, unless we have more commissioners' comments, administration. Yes, Joe. Yes, Joe.
I do have a comment. We did not talk about Frank Daly's letter from the Nantucket Builders Association.
Thank you for reminding me. And I think you made the point that you felt that it was aimed as individual comments rather than inviting him to come when we next discuss regulations, perhaps regulatory updates.
Yes.
And
I did not think that was a very good idea, because if I went to that meeting, I don't want to speak for the whole commission, or if someone else went, I don't know whether they should speak for the whole commission. So that's an issue, but it's a letter that needs to be responded to somehow.
well, thank you for bringing that up. And Linda, did I see that you had something to say?
No, not on Frank Daly's letter, but I do agree with Joe that it has to be responded to.
Right. Yes, Joe.
The other comment I had is the meeting schedule for 2024. That sounded like it was a proposed schedule. It looks good to me. Is that the final schedule?
We drafted that up for you guys to take a look at. No one has typically objected about them in the past because it's hard to predict like a year from now. But that's
It looks good.
Avoiding all holidays and school vacations and things scheduled for next year.
Good.
So Joe, would you like Jeff or Will to draft a letter thanking Mr. Daly for his reaching out to us, and that we look forward to having him present when we have our next meeting? Is that something that you would countenance?
Yes.
And does everybody else agree with? Is that something that staff would mind doing?
Not a problem.
Okay, great.
We will be done with it in short order.
Great. I can see he's already drafting it now. All right. Any other administrator or staff report?
No, I think we're good. Yes, I do have one thing.
Yes.
Welcome back to my partner in crime. It's great to have him back. And you'll get to deal with 2 of us now. And I also I never say it enough. For those of you guys who haven't, I think everyone's met her. Really the hero behind the scenes here is really Lisa, who makes all of this actually work. So I never give her credit enough on these things. So it's nice to have the full team back together. Hopefully it will be for quite some time.
Well, great.
I'll let Will talk now if he wants to.
Yes, Will.
I think
Any comment?
Jeff said it better than I even can, but the gang's all here, and I'm very happy to be back and very happy to see all of your smiling faces on Zoom. And I can't wait to see you on island in the near future.
Good. Totally reciprocated. So, and with a special shout out to Lisa, thank you for mentioning that, Jeff. I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Joe.
So move, Mr. Chairman. I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal. Mark Beal.
Aye.
Thank you, Mark. Tim Brain.
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Another good meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that's kind of you to overlook some of my stumbles, Linda. I appreciate it. And Ian Golding, aye. Good night, everybody, and thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
I guess.
Have a great night, everyone.